We're talking to Thomas Ricks, Pulitzer Prize winner, Washington Post correspondent on the military, the author of The Gamble. Why was there such a hesitancy on the part of the Iraqis to sign the status of agreement forces?
The status of forces agreements was a big diss to the Iraqis on a couple of grounds. First, the notion that Americans were beyond the reach of Iraqi law was repugnant to them, especially after the killings by security guards.
Right.
The second thing was, because everybody in Iraq is basically anti-American, including our ostensible allies, nobody wanted to be the person who says, yeah, I agree to have you here for another 3 years. What Maliki was able to do was say, well, I've got them out in 3 years. What that enabled him to do was then have the provincial elections campaign. It was all local, domestic Iraqi politics about finding the proper anti-American position. And Iraqi politics runs from mildly anti-American to extremely anti-American.
And so when people say, I want to kill you, but not today, every one of those different disparate groups has a different day in which they want.
Yes, and a different red line that will lead them back to violence. And guess what? All those political parties have armed wings. There's a continuum between a political party and a militia. And if they feel dissatisfied with electoral results, if they feel they're not getting a fair shake, they can easily just shift back to violence.
When do you perceive the next big, things have been relatively quiet in Iraq. Just today, and we're pre-taping this interview, but today a bomb just went off, I think it was in Baghdad, 43 people killed, I believe.
Three things really worry me in Iraq this year, and that's why I think the first year of Obama's war is going to be tougher than the last year of Bush's war. First is they've got 3 rounds of elections there. Elections are destabilizing. If you want stability, just find yourself a strongman, a new Saddam, and put him in power.
Don't you think we probably will end up doing that?
I think we probably will. It won't be us, actually. They'll find themselves a strongman. They'll be so sick of these American experiments and the destabilization. But at the end of this year, they're supposed to have national elections. Well, just at the end of this year is also when our troop withdrawal starts getting really dicey. The first troop withdrawals are kind of easy. You just pull people out of the secure areas. By the end of this year, General Odierno says in the book, we'll be pulling troops out of places that are still kind of dangerous, that are kind of risky, or we don't trust Iraqi forces. So that's just as they're holding general elections. The third problem is none of the questions have been solved. They're all hanging fire. So what you have is a declining American presence and influence, increasing frustration with the lack of resolution, and a series of destabilizing elections. That's a recipe for a pretty messy year, and messy 2010.
Now, I think in the book you suggest, or Odierno suggests we could have 55,000 troops as late as 2015.
He says 30 to 35,000 as late as 2015, and I think he's probably right.
Is there really any indication that we're going to need any less in 2015 than we do today?
Kicking the can down the road. It's a profoundly dissatisfying policy. It might be the best of a lot of bad policies. As Ambassador Crocker says at the very last line of the book, the events for which the Iraq War will be remembered have not yet happened. And I think that's a devastating thought for Americans to take on, that we are far from the end of this thing. There's a lot more to go. And everything flows from the original sin of a misconceived, misbegotten invasion on false premises.
Thomas Ricks, thank you very much. The book is The Gamble. Thanks again.
You're welcome.